RETROMania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network is a Moonsault Media Production and is intended for private use only. For more information, contact retromaniapodcast@gmail.com.
Hey everybody, and welcome to RetroMania presents Gaijin Wrestling Radio, a little special here. I am joined here with Will Rodriguez. Hey, Will, you are a wrestling buddy with current members of the hosting squad, the Wrestle Buds, and you're one of the buds too. And we met the first time going to ROH Best of World, and that was in July, correct?
Yeah. Had our own little pod.
Yeah. So everybody, welcome Will. Will, how's it going, man?
It's going good. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining me and giving me your time. We wanted to discuss some Ring of Honor. So you're friends with Kyle and Jimmy and Dan, and they are Ring of Honor diehards, and they have been to a lot of shows. So tell me your history of wrestling first off, and then tell me how you met them, and kind of catch us up, like your state of like wrestling fandom. Like let's catch up with you in this retrospective podcast.
Oh boy. Okay, where to start with that?
A lot of stuff.
Yeah. So I guess it starts with like just being friends with Kyle and Jimmy, childhood friends. They've all, as long as I've known them, they've always been into wrestling. For whatever reason, it never clicked with me growing up, but I liked that they liked wrestling.
Yeah.
So yeah, around the time we were like 15 years old, they were starting to go to ROH shows. So, yeah, this must have been like Summer of Punk era type stuff. And I never really had the opportunity to go with them. The one time I almost went to a show was with Jimmy and Dan, but then Dan's car broke down before we even got out of Maryland. So I wound up not going to my first show until like 10 years after that.
Wow. Things happen though.
Yeah, right. So yeah, like, my relationship with wrestling was very much super casual through Kyle and Jimmy. So for a few years in the last decade or so, it was always like, oh hey, Royal Rumble's on, WrestleMania's on. Let me hit up like Kyle, because at this time Jimmy was down in Virginia. So Kyle was more accessible and be like, hey, want to hang out, watch one of these pay-per-views.
The casual get-togethers. Exactly.
And then there was plenty of times where hanging out with Kyle, he'll be like, oh, let me bring up some YouTube videos.
And in your off time, did you ever like seek it out or anything, or like,
No. So that was, I don't know why. Like I definitely enjoyed, especially watching the stuff Kyle was showing me on YouTube, mostly like a lot of PWG stuff. Okay. I know Young Buck stood out. And there were a couple times I remember watching like a Royal Rumble, and Kofi Kingston did the Kofi spot, during the Rumble, and I was like, that's awesome.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So like that impressed me, and then just always hearing Kyle go, yeah, that guy's awesome, but he's not Vince McMahon's type.
Right.
And
right there.
So what was that?
Getting the insight there.
Yeah, exactly. And like, always like for years, like I was hanging out with Kyle and be like, what's going on? What's happening in the world of WWE? And for so long, it was always like the way he would describe it. It was like it was on the cusp of something. Like I remember it was like, CM Punk is the champ. There's this thing called the Shield. It feels like they're going to turn the corner. It feels like something awesome's going to happen. And that was like all I heard from Kyle for years was just WWE was on the cusp of turning a new page, and it never happened. So I think that kind of prevented me from seeking it out too much. I did try watching like a Hulu cut on my own one time, but it didn't click with me. Yeah. So anyways, kind of rambling. eventually, around 2016, I went to my first show, which was an ROH show in Philly. Went with Kyle, and Dan was there.
What show was that?
Oh God, I couldn't tell you the name.
Sure, if they were here, they'd be screaming at you right now.
Yeah, right. All I remember from it was, other than it was at 2300, so it was at the ECW arena.
Okay.
And I do remember Briscoes were there, Young Bucks were there, and Dalton Castle stood out because his entrance. I was like, oh, who's that guy? That's fun. And so after that show, I then started following like Young Bucks and a few other wrestlers on social medias and stuff, and kind of like just that caused me to start keeping a very casual eye on wrestling. Okay. And then went to a couple local shows with Kyle and Jimmy in between then. And so,
local as far as like Evolve or MCW? Or?
Yeah. So there was a couple MCW shows. Actually, kind of funny is we went to an MCW show. Matt Hardy was there, and this was he was in the main event, and this was weeks before he did the broken Matt Hardy gimmick. Because then I remember Kyle sending me a text being like, dude, remember how we just saw Matt Hardy? You got to check out this video. And I was just like, what is happening?
Nobody had a premonition?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, Jeff Hardy showed up too. He was in the hoodie. Yeah, that was a treat. He was in a hoodie, and he kind of did a little run out to help out Matt. And
are you going to go see some of his acoustic sets coming up?
I didn't know he was doing acoustic sets. Is he doing acoustic sets?
He's going to focus on music for right now.
Okay.
End of the December 2021 when we're recording this, but yeah.
I got to check that out. And then I did go to an Evolve show. I remember that was actually a solid show. Chris Hero and Zack Sabre Jr. had a match. Wow. That was a lot of fun to watch. And this was before I was like a wrestling fan, so I was impressed with that. And Tony Nese got his NXT contract there. I do remember being front row. William Regal was there. So yeah, went to a couple of those local shows in between. So that was like between 2016 and then 2018. This is when I finally became a fan, was because I was following the Young Bucks on Twitter, and then they had the announcement. They're like, big news coming January 1st, 2019. Sure enough, that was AEW. And for some reason, that was the catalyst. And I couldn't tell you why, other than maybe it was like a David and Goliath story where it's like finally WWE has competition.
Right.
And so
you see WWE as something that was like had potential for you as far as storytelling and wrestling, and then maybe AEW kind of filled in that gap?
I don't know, because I wasn't really. I think I was turned off from WWE just from like just hearing about like nothing's happening, they're not pushing the right guys. I remember watching a Pac match with Kyle too, or at the time Neville or whatever, being super impressed with him because the whole. What was this gimmick? The man gravity forgot or whatever.
Yeah, but originally it was going to be Mighty Mouse.
Christ. So, yeah, but I remember having the same conversation with him about like Kofi Kingston, where it was just like, this dude's awesome. This is entertaining. I would watch this every week. And then Kyle's like, yeah, don't get your hopes up. Yeah. So just hearing like the kind of like negative opinions on WWE, it just never clicked with me. But for some reason, the AEW announcement, something happened that I was just like, this is interesting. Let me look into this. And then I went and watched All In, which was a lot of fun to watch. And then, yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there. And
to any AEW shows at all?
Yeah. Went to the first one in DC.
Okay.
Went to Full Gear in Baltimore.
Wow.
So
wow.
Yeah, those were a lot of fun. and going to the DC shows coming up next month. But yeah, that's like, so 2019 was when I started seeking out wrestling on my own, and yeah, rest is history.
That is very cool. It's very interesting to hear your perspective going forward throughout this podcast, because I've like, usually I meet a fan that's like been a, you know, someone who like watched it when they were very younger and then, you know, lapsed for a while and then come back to it later or something. But there's some type of lapse. But you come into it like later in life, which is
Yeah.
very, very cool. I like that aspect though. It's different. So it's like not like you're tainted in any way, but you can still get tainted by your friends, or you know, like, or like your own perspective. But I like that. That's very cool. So going forward, you and I went and we first met at the Best in the World. That's cool, and that was a fun event, but it was during the pandemic, so it was kind of a Ring of Honor was just scaled down to nothing. So there was maybe, what do you say, how many people were there?
Oh, that it had to have been under 2,000, maybe 1,000, maybe. It's hard to say because it was all the pod situation, so it's hard to gauge.
But they spaced this out, so we sat together like 5 in a group or 6 in a group, and then they spaced this out like 2 seats aside. And then from there, like everybody else had like a space in front of them or behind them too. It was very, it was done well, which was cool.
Yeah.
Like Dan was like, I would love wrestling if this was always
Yeah.
well. And again, the wrestlers wouldn't eat.
Yeah.
Eating that much or like getting that much income. But yeah, so that was good. And we had seen Bandito become world champion, which was awesome. First Mexican versus Mexican heavyweight championship for the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship. And we saw that. That was a great match. A lot of fun stuff there during that event. It was cool, like being close knit with those people and the stadium there. So then they are holding their final battle, quote unquote. Ring of Honor went through some stuff with the COVID, and you know that they made the announcement that they would be ceasing operations and giving everybody the opt to get out of their contract or stay with them, and they're going to reimagine Ring of Honor. So bittersweet, but now things are different with Ring of Honor going forward for this event, Final Battle. And you were intrigued as well as all of us, the Wrestle Buds. What were you looking forward to before the change of plans for the pandemic? And then going into it, we'll talk about the matches and your experience.
Like, what was I looking forward to? The specific pay-per-view?
Yeah, in the pay-per-view, or like coming forward to like Final Battle. Like at first we were like, oh, Final Battle's coming back. All right, cool, that sounds good. And then all of a sudden, like within a month, we were like, oh shit, this is gonna be the final battle.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely. Yeah, the news certainly changed. Certainly changed my expectations, because before I was just expecting that, like, pretty much what we saw Best in the World, you know, just a solid pay-per-view. But then, yeah, this definitely changed the dynamics of it. You know, I was expecting some emotional matches. Certainly people giving it their all and all, you know, all that. And it delivered. It actually, I would say it exceeded my expectations, to be honest.
Right on. So like take me into it, like you and I, when we all went with the dudes for Best in the World, we had to mask up and it was separated. How was it going into the same arena for Final Battle?
Almost nobody wearing masks. We were probably one of the few groups wearing masks. And there was no pods this time, which was nice. I you know, I like being in the crowd and that energy.
Right.
Yeah, it was nicer to see the stands filled out a bit more. for sure. Definitely, I don't know why they were running shows out of that arena, because they curtain off half the arena, and then they don't sell tickets to the top concourse, so it always looks kind of empty. But the crowd was great. Some fans of Flip Gordon I was sitting around, which didn't sour my experience, but I was just kind of like, eh. But no, other than that, energy from pre-show all the way through the grand finale was great.
Yeah, I've always said that, like, the closer knit, like going to MCW shows or the Ring of Honor shows, and I'm sure like Kyle and Jimmy and Dan are more like apropos to this type of like statement, like they would know better than us, but there are some characters going to those local shows. Um, it's part of the show, so
Yeah,
they definitely bring the energy.
Yeah.
So it's fun stuff. Let's get into the event. Did you guys get there to witness all the matches going through?
Yes, I was in the beer line for the first pre-show match, the 6-man tag title.
6-man tag, a Ring of Honor World 6-man tag. The Righteous, Vincent, Bateman, and Dutch with Veda Von Star defeating Shane Taylor Promotions, that's Con Moses, and O'Shea Edwards with Ron Hudd out there. 10 minutes. It was action-packed, some fun stuff. They had been building up this feud for the last month, and I like how the Righteous finally, kind of come into their place, but again, bittersweet because we're coming to an end of an era in ROH, and the last event that we had seen, the Righteous, they looked like they were challenging for Bandito or coming towards his title, but Bandito becoming a victim of COVID and things there, so everything changed. But you said you were in the beer line.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got there just in time for that match to start, and I wish I would have seen it, because I do like Shane Taylor Promotions. I know I believe Con and Moses came out of MCW too.
Yes.
And O'Shea Edwards is a whole lot of fun. I love him, and
he's a throwback to ROH, one of the originals too, which I didn't know.
Wow,
until
I didn't know that.
I saw the picture that Kyle had shared in our group text, and he's there with Samoa Joe and all those guys back in the day. So he was part of the original stomping grounds of ROH.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was actually a little bit surprised that they dropped the titles, but not too surprised. They were holding on to those titles for a minute.
Yeah, holding a strong foundation there. Not playing on words of the foundation, but yeah.
Yeah, right.
Moving on, the next match, Miranda Alizé and the Allure.
Umlaut.
Angelina Love and Mandy Leon defeated Chelsea Green and the Hex, Allison Kay and Marty Bell. Action-packed 6-woman tag, about 7 minutes. Fun stuff there.
Yeah, for sure.
I always like to see Chelsea Green and Marty Bell and Allison Kay. They're great wrestlers. I don't know. Angelina Love never really struck me as something like to grasp onto, but a good match nonetheless. Moving on, story parts for their booking, so the heels have to get the victory here, and they go on. We'll see what happens as they move on with ROH. I don't know how much crossover this is going to get, because everybody's going to go their own ways, and we'll see, and we'll discuss that as far as like what you think is going to happen with Ring of Honor in the future, and how we go from there. Moving on, another 10-man tag team match, one of the pre-show matches. PJ Black, Flip Gordon, Brian Malonis, Beer City Bruisers, and the world-famous Cheeseburger defeated LSG, Sledge, Max the Impaler, Demonic Flamita, and Will Ferreira with Amy Rose. About 11 minutes. Did you see this one?
Yeah. I was in time got back to my seat in time for these last two pre-show matches. Yeah, 10-man tag match, a lot of crazy spots. What stood out for me the most was certainly Max the Impaler, because they've been wrestling in the women's division for their whole time in ROH. And I believe this is the first time they were able to wrestle against men.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a big deal. And they certainly impressed and held their own, which, of course, intergender wrestling is, I don't know if ROH has ever done that before, but that stood out.
Yeah, to some extent, but yeah, it's everybody this year is kind of taking a step forward with intergender wrestling in a way, I think. At least on the major scale of promotions that I've seen. I know indie wrestling has always done that, but for televised wrestling, yeah, I've at least seen one for each promotion,
Yeah, well, except Tony Khan is his opinions on intergender, but this was a fun match, solid one to end the pre-show.
Yeah, absolutely. And then getting into the main show, we see Dragon Lee defeating Ray Horace in 11 minutes and 20 seconds in a singles match. These guys had some history going back to Best in the World when we saw them, and even before then. Just a lot of in strife with the Los Infascinables and Ray Horace being friends with Bandito, but getting scaled down. I mean, I think these guys put on a great match, fast paced, hard hitting, but overall, I don't know, Dragon Lee could have been pushed further up the card. I think they might have wanted to eventually get him and Bandito in the ring, but
for sure,
never really got there. So what about you? What are your thoughts?
I certainly was surprised that this was the opening match for the card. I remember turning to Kyle and being like, "Oh, okay, we're starting off hot." So but at the same time, with what's happening with the company, I'm not surprised that international talent is probably not getting. They probably just don't know what to do with international talent right now. True. Since they don't know what to do with any talent. I imagine international talent could be pushed, lower on the card.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Do you think that them latching on to international talent as far as CMLL or Triple A talent, that was a hindrance during their pandemic days, the last year or two? Because I think it was good, it was a good thought, but in hindsight now it's you kind of pigeonholed yourself into those guys that are also tied into AAA or CMLL that have to go back or can't work with you anymore, or can't travel to Canada or anywhere else. It's there's a lot of restrictions.
Yeah, that actually never really crossed my mind, slapping the title on international talent during a pandemic where your international talent might not be able to cross the border. Yeah. No, in hindsight, that definitely is a risky move. And plus with Mexican wrestling in general, with all the drama that happens down there, especially with CMLL, I mean, they just pulled a bunch of their wrestlers from indie shows in the States because I forget what the drama is. I guess there's AAA wrestlers on the card, and CMML's
it's a blood feud between
them. Yeah, exactly. It's so much drama trying to work with those promotions south of the border that even if it wasn't a pandemic, just going that route was going to be tricky.
Yeah, and I think that overall that was a hindrance for them. It was good. It was a good thought. I like the idea. of mixing the lucha in there and like, you know, going that route. But you got to think about it in like travel wise, which, you know, nobody thought about the pandemic
Yeah.
until it happened. But yeah, nonetheless, Dragon Lee coming up hot there, and no Roosh on this card at all.
Yeah, no. Injured, right? Or
I believe so. Yeah.
yeah. I think he's got an injury.
Yeah. Moving on, next match, the four Colonels. Four corner survivor. The Ring of Honor World Television Championship, going 8 minutes and 15 seconds. Rhett Titus defeats Dalton Castle, Silas Young, and Joe Hendry. Wow. This was okay. Joe Hendry still has a lot to go in the ring with communication with those guys. It seemed like he's lost to me a lot of the time. Like he's like stalling and waiting. Dalton Castle did his thing. Silas Young is going to be Silas Young. And
Sure.
Rhett Titus is a classic there. So I think this was kind of like a consolation prize. It's like, hey, you've been here so long. Let's give you the television championship, and you can do a drop kick.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's pretty much the sentiments I had about this match. You know, I didn't realize that Titus had been with the company for 15 years, and this is his first time holding a title. So you know, nice. It was nice.
Yeah.
The only person in that match I really have any feelings either way about is Dalton Castle. Just because he's fun, you know. It's you know, you see him live. It's I hope he goes places after this, because he had just
where did you see him?
Anywhere, to be honest. The crowd was hot for him as usual. You know, I don't know if he could be a regular on AEW. I could see him being able to make appearances there, but
for me, AEW is stacked to the with a roster already. I could see Dalton Castle definitely going to NWA, being a you know, a colorful personality there. But
not that crazy about NWA, but that's personal opinions against Billy Corgan. But yeah, he could really he'd be fine anywhere. I see him getting bookings on anywhere on the independents for sure.
And that's the fun thing about now. It's like we're opening up back again, so we can see independents or people traveling, and possibly MCW Evolve, you know, going there. Like Evolve's dead, but yeah. But you know,
Evolve's no more.
DCW or anything like that, or yeah. That'd be interesting. Moving on, we have Josh Woods defeating Brian Johnson, defending his ROH Pure Championship in 12 minutes and 58 seconds. What'd you think about this one?
It was fun. It's solid. I didn't know anything. With Best of the World, I didn't know anything about the Pure rules. I remember you guys having to explain that to me, but I very much dig these matches. Brian Johnson, he was
feel for wrestling. How do you feel? Do you feel that it slows down the pace, or do you feel that you're more like psychologically invested? Or
I like the this is a more broader, but I like that it brings more variety into wrestling styles. You know, it's because I know people have their feelings about, you know, the grappling and you know,
they grapple.
Yeah, it's I understand that. I understand it's not necessarily always the most exciting wrestling to watch, but I like that it's variety. I like that there is a level of a different level of skill and knowledge of wrestling that you need to implement for it. So yeah, I'm very much a fan. Brian Johnson his gimmick's the Mecca, right?
Yes, he's
Yes.
CCA.
Yeah. So he came in.
He's also the MCW champion.
Yes, he's the current MCW champion, which they're doing their version of Final Battle, since they no longer have their arena. Yeah, he came in and perfect heel. Josh Woods looked real mean, mean and clean in the match, and I liked it. Well, he was like he tapped him out on the turnbuckle. Can't remember. Yeah, I was a few beers deep at this point, but yeah,
it was a tricky tap out on the turnbuckle, but Brian Johnson had essentially used all his rope breaks.
Right.
But Brian Johnson is great. I'm not that big on Josh Woods, but he performs well in every match that I see. It's like we tried to hate on the Mike Bennett and Josh Woods match, or no, it was Josh Woods and holy crap, it was Josh Woods and Silas Young. And they pulled out the stops. They pulled out the table spot. He pulled out.
Oh yeah,
he pulled out
it's coming back to me now.
Yeah, he pulled out the big suplexes. Like we were like, holy shit, tearing it up in the ring right now. Yeah, that was really fun. This match, I kind of like was back and forth with like my feelings of like intense, not intense. Like they're like I feel like Brian Johnson should have came out the winner. Like he deserves this title, and he could be like the best like heel to hold the pure championship and like be a cheater, but nonetheless, we'll see where they go in the future. Moving on, it's Shane Taylor defeating Kenny King in a fight without honor. They brought out all the stops, and it was Kenny King returning to his former self, his original character or gimmick, if you will, in Ring of Honor. And he comes out with the bandana and gloves, and it's hardcore Kenny King. But I can't ever take him serious because he's been on like The Bachelorette and
what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Been on like reality dating shows. So no, I can't take him seriously. He just wants to be a celebrity.
Sure.
He's the KING, but he's PIMPING himself too much.
Gotta get out there. But that match was a banger.
It was fun. Very.
Yeah. I'm a fan of Shane Taylor. And the crowd getting behind Shane Taylor was always like for the 6-man tag. I heard it from the beer line, everyone chanting STP. And with this match as well, just it's always fun to see ladders. It's always fun to see big ladders.
Yeah, even bigger ladders than you.
Yeah, exactly. And
the lights don't even go that high in ROH. Why do you need a ladder that high?
Yeah. It was a high energy match to watch. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Very glad to see Shane Taylor get the win. And then
go over in Ring of Honor. When you go to the live shows, the show that we went to, and even when I see him every time on TV, and even the last year during the pandemic, Ring of Honor gave him a big push. This dude is over,
For sure.
It clearly shows, especially with that match.
Yeah, post ROH, I expect him to go on to better things, or at least I hope he goes on to better things. Just because of this how over he is. And then I don't know if they broadcast at the moment after the match, where like everyone from STP and like a few other like not cheeseburger, but world famous CB was out there, although he was wearing his cheeseburger.
It was all the African American talent from Ring of Honor. Man, that was a great moment.
That was special. Yeah,
and you can tell it's because Shane Taylor is a trainer there. Kenny King has helped train people. They've been there for a long time together. This rivalry is sewn up because of the end of Ring of Honor. I think they could have stretched this out longer with La Fasciness Ingobernables and and Shane Taylor Promotions. They could have stretched that out, but things happened with the pandemic, so they wanted this big match there for these guys and their foundation members of Ring of Honor, and it was very cool to see all the African American talent out there to celebrate and rejoice with each other for a hard hitting match, man.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of ladder bumps, like lot of like, oh man, there was a couple things where I was like, Jesus, Kenny.
For sure.
Landing on his head. Like, he landed on his head for the ladder spot when they broke through on the apron, when the guys were holding the ladder between the barricade and the ring. The pile driver spot.
Okay.
He whacked his head really hard. Yeah.
I didn't get to see the landing live. I only got to see them like as they go. So I didn't know that he landed right on his head.
Oh yeah, it was nasty. But yeah, nonetheless, it was a great time. Before we move on, you just reminded me. Did you guys get to see any of the inserts of like the talent from the past?
Yeah, so they showed them. Couldn't hear it all too well, especially if the crowd was still active. But they played them. They played them. That's why it kind of sucked that I guess I understand for time constraints, but they started playing the CM Punk message during the after the Shane Taylor match.
Of course they would.
Yeah, that interrupt. That's why like a lot of people online were like, you didn't get to see this because they cut right to CM Punk.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so the CM Punk message was going on when all the gentlemen had their fists in the air, and I was just like, come on, you could hold off a few more seconds. But yes, they did show, and what was like all AEW guys now. But yeah. So that was neat.
And do you think that's a top? Well, all right, we'll get to it after. Let's run through. All right, match number 8, Roxy defended her Ring of Honor Women's World Championship, defeating Willow Nightingale via pinfall in 9 minutes and 50 seconds. What'd you think of this one?
This was a standout performance for me for Willow. I kind of feel bad. Roxy got booed a lot, even though she had a fine performance, but the crowad was behind.
I think the fans just love Willow too much.
Yeah, this was the first. Was that
the charisma?
Yeah, no, exactly. The energy she brings. She actually kind of reminds me of like is it Erica Lee, where they're kind of like goofy, kind of happy-go-lucky. But then once the match starts, you're like, oh, they could go. They're not just this smiles and skipping and all that stuff. It's like, oh, they could go.
And I know my own strength, but I'm not.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Right. So this was, I would say, the first time the crowd really got loud. There were, for Shane Taylor and Kenny King, they certainly were active, but there was something special about the crowd rallying behind Willow. There was a guy sitting behind us he was a riot, calling all the spots, really hyping up Willow. That certainly helped, with the energy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so Willow absolutely killed it. I could kind of understand why the result was the way it was. And Roxy was fine. She's still like she's 19. She's young. Yeah. So she'll bounce back from it, but like I refrained from booing Roxy, but I was still surprised that the crowd was like they were not happy with the result. But yeah, standout performance in my opinion.
Now, is that something for you getting into, like seeing live shows? Because at this point, I think you've probably seen more live shows than I have in my lifetime, because you're like an avid fan of going to see live shows. But the crowd is the most important part, right?
Oh yeah, easily. I was there for Matt Cardona and Nick Gage at GCW over the summer, and I've never been in a crowd that ravenous. The energy was next level, and it makes all the difference. And just to go on a little tangent, I think that's just what GCW has right now that no one else does, is besides the talent and the booking and all that, is just the fan base. Like, I think any promotion would kill to have a fan base that is as supportive as GCW fans. Um, just because, yeah, a hot crowd, nothing beats that. It makes the experience. It's yeah.
That brings a smile to my face, just because it reminds me of, like, I mean, I'm 34, but I've watched wrestling for so long, but that I've like intrigued by wrestling from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So it's like I see those territory areas where they have normal fans that are, or reoccurring fans that are always there. So
Mhm.
you get like the twins that are always in the front row at like some South shows, or like you get people in the DC area or Baltimore area, or like up in Philly and ECW. There's like the sign guy, like, there's like people that are always there that like bring the energy, but then they bring other people because of that energy. And that's, I think, something that has been missing from wrestling for a long time, that we actually were able to regain with the pandemic in a strange way, you know?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And just also touch on, like, I went to another local show recently too, and the show was great. The crowd was a little quiet and polite, and it's such a different experience from when the crowd is just screaming and chanting. And so
Could you even imagine
yeah.
going to a New Japan show right now where they can't even emote? All they can do is
Just
like
polite golf claps.
Nick Gage coming out, you're just slapping your hands as hard as you can.
Oh, and yeah, it's a different culture, but man, yeah, I can't imagine that. Especially, I mean, speaking of Nick Gage, that mosh pit entrance is just. There've been times where, like, I'm too old for that, but there are times where I'm looking over and I'm like, I feel like running over there. Like, I want to get in.
I'm gonna blade myself.
Exactly. Infectious for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of violence and blading, Violence Unlimited, Brody King, Homicide, and Tony Deppen, and Rocky Romero. One of these things are not like the other. With Chris Dickinson, defeated EC3, Eli Isom, Tyler Rust, and Tracy Williams in an 8-man tag team match going about 15 minutes. This is kind of getting into the Foundation versus Violence Unlimited feud that had been building up this whole year in Ring of Honor. And lo and behold, Jay Lethal's not present. So, yeah, one of the biggest things that they were trying to get to is kind of not there.
Oops.
Whoopsie daisy. We're just Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this was Kyle had to explain this one to me. But I believe this was the one where they were doing a bunch of, like, old school ROH spots throughout the match.
Okay.
And yeah, I remember, like, seeing Kyle looking over, and Kyle and Jimmy were popping hard. And Homicide hitting the cop killer, obviously, gets everyone going every time. So a little special treat inside this match. But the right result, because I'm a huge fan of all these guys in Violence Unlimited. A shame, Chris Dickinson has his injury, because he's always fun to watch. But yeah, very special match, I'd say.
Yeah. Interesting stuff there. I mean, it's like the outcast. Like, Tracy Williams is the one guy that was like, ROH, cool, we're down with you. And then you get like Eli Isom, who's this up and comer. It's like, yeah, we can cheer for you. And then you get Taylor Rust, who just got released from NXT, and he had already been Russ Taylor and all that other crap that he went through. And then EC3, another, yeah. And then
We'll say EC3 looks shredded. I'll give him that. But
of course,
yeah. And then after this was the whole Braun Strowman coming out thing, and whatever.
Strong bro, man.
Yeah, and the whole control your narrative thing. We don't need corporate. Like, that promo went on way too long. I was exhausted.
The reaction was kind of like what we got on audio. It was kind of like, man, like some people were like, yeah, but then some people were like, it was
very much so.
It was like
very much
40, like 60% meh, 40% yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like in the crowd. I was like looking at my watch like, come on, dude.
Oh, please. Semi-main event, we're moving on. The Briscoe brothers, Jay and Mark Briscoe, defeating the OGK, Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, the champions at the time, with Maria Kanellis Bennett, who had to get her spot in there. She said, Mike, just spear me through a table every day. Yeah, 15 minutes and 40 seconds. This was a fucking, like, all-out banger.
Oh, yeah. Probably, I would say match of the night. It looks like it's everybody's match of the night, and I would agree with that assessment. Briscoes always bring it. I've become a fan of Mike Bennett since his release, which was a while ago.
Let's go, Mike. That's the Maryland accent fans that cheered him on.
Mike. That's a good Maryland accent.
Yeah, Mike Bennett's been decent. Matt Taven, I feel like he had that oomph, and then Roosh came along, and then he kind of got on the back burner, and he had suffered some injuries, and then the offgoing feud with Vincent, which lasted way too long. They could have blown that off so many different times, but they had injuries that were not, it didn't work out in the booking, essentially. Right. And then when they did blow it off, it was like the cheapest cage ever, and it didn't work out. And then it just didn't work out for them. But I feel bad for those guys, and I love that they're originals, the OGK, yes. But the Briscoes are the heart and the soul of Ring of Honor. And those guys fucking put it on regardless. And the big spots here that we'll see is the demolition doomsday device over the top rope. Holy shit, that got like the biggest reaction of the night. Matt Taven jumping over the top rope onto the outside, giving the doomsday device to Mark Briscoe. Holy shit.
Yeah, just absolutely insane. And so this is another tangent about the athletic commission, because I forget which one, one of the Briscoes was bleeding. And I'm pretty sure in Maryland, you're technically supposed to stop the match regardless.
Supposed to bleed, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, it would even talk with Dan about that. He's just like, could you imagine if they actually like stopped that match just because of the blood? It would have been
a riot
easily. So I'm glad. I think like Sinclair must know somebody in the government, or they're eating the fines. But yeah, that was such a high energy match. And then obviously what happened afterwards was
tell us,
yeah, the loudest pop of the night, easily.
FTR.
Yeah, man, and it was great. It was one of those moments where, like, when FTR first showed up, the crowd is, kind of, split a little bit. There's FTR chants, there's Briscoe chants, but then sure enough, as it keeps going, and then everybody in that arena was, fuck 'em up Briscoes, that chant going, and which one was it? Was it Dax gets in the ring, and they're so good at being heels. That match, if that's not on AEW, I'll be surprised. But man,
we'll get into it when we discuss the future of Ring of Honor here shortly. Let's like you said, that was a banger. And they can't. It's like if the Briscoes don't win, we riot.
Exactly.
They have so much besides the fact that Mark Briscoe just has 7 kids there, let alone they'll stab you. So there's 7 people there ready to stab you. So they brought another 20, and then that's probably 50% of the arena, or
yeah, for sure. Papa Briscoe was. I think Kyle saw Papa Briscoe in the concession line, and fans were. He
was on screen. A lot of the family members were on screen too.
Nice.
It was very cool. And that was a great match. It was a very cool throwback match to the glory days of Ring of Honor, and to when they first kind of got on with Sinclair, because Matt Taven, Mike Bennett were the chosen guys for Sinclair at the time.
Interesting.
And then they formed the Kingdom. So lo and behold, the original is the OOOGs against the OGK, which was cool. It was fitting though. And the Briscoes go out 12-time champions, and then like you said, FTR comes on the scene. Holy shit. Big reaction. I cannot wait. Last match of the night, Jonathan Gresham defeating Jay Lethal via submission for the Ring of Honor World Championship. 15 minutes, 35 seconds. The Ring of Honor World Championship had to be vacated. Bandito came down with COVID-19. Very sad stuff here, and it was supposed to be Gresham and Bandito, correct?
Yes, I very much was looking forward to that. Easily was the one match I was looking forward to the most. Jay Lethal makes sense as the replacement. Can't say I was all that excited about it. Still a great match, obviously. There was no way those two are pros. There's no way they're going to put on a bad match. But yeah, talk about the most emotional match of the night. It was something special. That was something special.
It was very special. And it's odd because it's like Jay Lethal signed with AEW because of all this happening, and then it changed the booking. What would have been the actual booking going into Jay Lethal staying with Ring of Honor, had Ring of Honor stayed afloat, or continued on with this? I knew eventually they were going to get to Gresham and Jay Lethal, but I think like I said before with Kenny King and Shane Taylor, it's you just got to put it together real quick because these are the guys on the card. Can we get this guy going against him? Can we get a big match right here? And it's all about timing in wrestling. And unfortunately, the timing was not for ROH, as it has been for the last 20 years. But this match was fucking incredible. I watched it twice because I watched it the first time and I was like, man, that was really good. I've seen them do those spots before in a television title match that they had a year or two prior. These guys have had a couple series of matches, but mutual respect in this long period, so this one stood out a lot, especially with the fan reaction, and at the end, some big, near falls, and then eventually being sewn up with a submission because Jonathan Gresham claims that the pure championship wrestling is actual wrestling, and it's the real wrestling. How do you feel about that at the end?
I don't want to say mixed about that at the end. From his promo, I did have to I feel like an ass. I did have to go get some water while he was cutting his little promo at the end about the whole pure wrestling thing. But I I like it. I don't think I necessarily was in love with his promo at the end, because I am excited about what he's, and I guess this kind of ties into future ROH stuff. I like what he's doing, Terminus, and all that. In regards to the pure wrestling, I like it for his gimmick. That's what he does. That's what he's known for. It's not. It's. I don't know if I would say it's overlooked. It probably is overlooked in pro wrestling. The the grappling, what the pure wrestling, what he does
in the grander stage of wrestling that's televised. I believe it's overlooked.
Yeah.
For diehards or people that are purists, not trying to put a pun on it, yeah, for sure, I think so. But I think they built around him for like almost like 2 years, 3 years for this whole thing to go down, and to me, it's a shame that the company is seemingly, going into exile until April, and we'll see what happens. Like, what are your thoughts going into the future? Like, overall, you had fun at the show.
Yes, absolutely.
Probably bittersweet. Bring me into the end, and then what are your thoughts on the future?
I mean, like, that's the thing, is like, it felt like the end, and I know they call it the end of an era and all that, but this is where I think Sinclair's going to dump ROH. I'll explain all the reasons why. But yeah, just the sentiment that it seems like nobody outside of Sinclair really knows what's going on. I don't even think the people in ROH know what's going on, just because of how this felt like an end. Even though, obviously, they just crowned new champions. Gresham's defending the title for the first time tonight. It's good. It's going to continue in that sense, but it just felt so final with all those now AEW guys that came up through ROH doing all those thank yous and stuff. It felt like more than just the closing of a chapter. It felt like the end of the company. I don't think that's going to be the case, but yeah, the language used. I have a screenshot here of like all the reasons why I think Sinclair is going to be dumping. I mean, there's the obvious reasons. First, that this isn't an ROH decision. What is it? The chief operating officer, whatever, said that.
Yeah, we discussed this in group before. He had like the chief operating officer of Sinclair had discussed that they didn't like ever see them as a priority. They never gave them adequate money, and we were all just like, "Hey, why don't you fucking try?"
Right, and so I think 2018 was a big year for them because they did the Madison Square Garden show. They had All In, which I guess is technically one of their shows, and it looked like things were going great. But yeah, you look at it's been 10 years now that Sinclair's owned ROH, and you look at the resources Sinclair has. The only next step up from like having a money mark like Sinclair is like a Tony Khan or a Vince McMahon, right? Like they have resources, and in the 10 years that they've owned ROH, what have they done for ROH? That
I don't think it's them; it's the talent. The talent has done what they need to do, but they have just kept the same fucking promotion. It's like when you see an ad for ROH, you're only going to see it while you're watching ROH.
Exactly.
And that's why those All Elite guys, they were like fed up. That's why we get into the All Elite wrestling, because they saw the writing on the wall. And a lot of people have said this for a while. When Sinclair bought Ring of Honor, they kind of utilized it as a write-off of a profit loss, as far as like a sports business that they can write off as a loss, which sounds fucked up, but that's what companies will do.
Oh yeah. And that's what I think that kind of like ties in with everything else. Like this whole, it was a Sinclair decision, not an ROH decision. Because I mean, when they made that announcement, some of the ink on those contracts was barely dry. Like they were, like I remember, like my first reaction was like they just signed Trish Adora, and now they're announcing that they're releasing talent. So I'm like, what do you mean reimagining? So like that was the first red flag, and then it was confirmed by somebody within ROH that they said this was ultimately a Sinclair call. And it's like, yeah, duh, because you guys were signing you were signing talent almost right up until you all announced that you were releasing talent. And then, like,
and it seems they were on a build too, like a build to a different direction.
They were really building a roster, and a pretty solid roster that if you were going to be reimagining something, why wouldn't you reimagine with the talent that you just locked in? I think another red flag that Sinclair is getting dumping them is that like I don't know anything about business and economics and stuff, but the financial calendar year is usually April 1st through March 31st, and the fact that they're taking the last quarter of the financial year, first quarter of the calendar year, to quote unquote reimagine, which I really think is Sinclair reevaluating what they're going to do. Yeah, exactly. They're going to be looking at it and being like, we've owned this property for 10 years. Did we get what we need to get out of it? Is there anything we can get out of it now?
Meanwhile, there's like 40 people that have worked there for 10 years, like busting their ass, trying to get ROH over. And they're like, we've tried to tell you wrestling is hot.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like, that's the thing is, like, I just don't see what Sinclair will do unless Sinclair decides to go balls to the wall and then actually throw money at ROH, which I don't see happening. I see them crunching the numbers for this next financial quarter to be like, you know what, well, let's just sell off this property because it's not making us money. Because I don't see them, because like I saw people talking about, oh, they're going to go to like be an independent promotion again. And it's just like, that's a terrible business to get into. Like, to be an independent promotion is not something that I could see Sinclair wanting to do, because that doesn't make you money. It's either they throw a bunch of money and try to be like another TV competitor, a serious TV competitor, because I know technically ROH has been on TV, but not
step up some production or light value, or anything.
Which I just don't see that happening. I don't see Sinclair being like, no, we're going to go in harder.
Do you see them rebranding to the women's, the world of women's wrestling, or what was that? That was the rumor, correct?
They are going to air on some of their, they own a bunch of different TV stations across the country, so they're going to air some of WoW on there. So, I mean, if they are going in on WoW, they might stick around with ROH, but I don't see what this, and in terms of April, they're not, hold on, if I drop something there, they're not, the language that they use
we'll be back in April. We'll see you in April.
Yeah, and it's like, on the press releases, we anticipate. And it's just like, anticipate, and it's like, I just don't get what you need I don't know how to run a wrestling promotion, but I don't know what you need to do that takes 3 months to reimagine.
I think they also, like, they think maybe possibly there could be a COVID thing. But also there's the big show, like, it's usually Supercard of Honor that runs during WrestleMania weekend. So, right. Are they going to be able to get a space? 1. 2, is availability for travel going to be accessible? 3, how much money are they dumping into that again for a second to third year in a row? I feel them on that, but it's like don't even say April then.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, somebody from PW Insider says that they do have a venue in place for the event. I feel like that's just something they probably had set already before all this went down. And to be honest, I could book a space for an event. Doesn't mean I have an event. I could find a space.
You have the ticket sales, insurance, or talent.
It's just too many red flags to see that Sinclair is going to continue with ROH. So I believe the future is that Sinclair is going to sell it. And I think someone will buy it. I don't see why, wrestling is hot right now. As to who buys it, I don't know. But
and we talked about that in the group. I thought that it would be a good prize for Tony Khan to purchase that and have that as the back burner, because most of the foundation of the people that he likes in wrestling and that he has on his brand have been part of Ring of Honor. And most, as far as like what you even like have come into as a wrestling fan, and much what I like as the newer crop, quote unquote, they're all Ring of Honor guys. I've loved Ring of Honor since its inception, which is going on almost 20 years now. And then their ultimate downfall. And I've always been a Ring of Honor fan, off and on. As far as like the talent is always there. Those are the guys that harvest and crop those, like getting them ready for TV. And there's a lot of characters and people that we've seen along the years. And it's just interesting to see where we're going to possibly go or not go with Ring of Honor. I see possibly a purchase from Tony Khan for the library and belt rights, and just to see, or just a working agreement until Sinclair decides what is going on in April or March for the new quarter. Like you said, it's a quarterly thing. So this is all business.
For sure. And, most companies at the last quarter of the financial year are they're number crunching, they're doing all their accounting. And to me, that's what I see this as, is the reason they're taking January through March off is Sinclair is going to do all the number crunching over the last 10 years and reevaluate what they're doing with the property. Another little red flag I saw was I read a Jonathan Gresham interview with Sports Illustrated. And he had said he's bringing, what's his name? Is it Casey Silken? Carrie Silken? Casey Silken?
Yeah, Carrie Silken.
Yeah. He's bringing him, he quote unquote said, I'm bringing him down to Terminus. And I'm like, that's interesting, because you're talking about a man who's been with ROH since, 2004? He was the owner of ROH that sold to Sinclair. And then Sinclair kept him around for the last 10 years.
The TV president.
Yeah, exactly. Like a ceremonial kind of role. Like
Jack Tunney.
Yeah. And so, that stood out to me the most in Gresham's interview, was that he's like, I'm bringing Silken down with me to Terminus. So one that makes what Gresham's doing with Terminus a lot more interesting.
That's very interesting. It makes me feel like they're staying open. They're just kind of like going on the it's almost like the whole promotion of Ring of Honor is going on excursion. They're going on excursion to other promotions to be like, hey, we're Ring of Honor. But where does that get them in the long run if they can't come back to TV? If
that's an interesting perspective.
Those belts don't matter. If those talent go somewhere else, it's TNA, Impact Wrestling. It's all over again.
Yeah.
That's where we get into the Dwayne The Rock Johnson in a hard place.
Yeah, I mean, like the way I see it though is like it's not, because at first I thought it was just talent was being released. But now it's evident that it's also front. It's like it's top to bottom ROH, and so I'm like, so who's left to reimagine? Like, if you're getting rid of like backstage contracts and front office too, I mean, I don't know if they've fired their president or all the other stuff. But
I don't know if Gator, the camera guy, has a job still, but please don't go to AEW. You always miss the finishes, dude. Sorry.
Yeah, but again, the fact that Silken, who I guess front office but not really front office, is now getting involved, and I don't know if he's been involved with other promotions. I don't think he really has.
He's had a say in ROH, and he's like one of the 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 minds and behind the booking and A&R of if you will, of Ring of Honor.
Yeah, and now he's getting involved somewhere else. So just too many red flags that I think the Super Card of Honor is a hopeful. I don't necessarily. Yeah, I think Sinclair's going to sell. I don't know if they sell in the next 3 months. So I don't. I'm not expecting an April return.
I kind of am there with you. Like I wish them the best, but then again, I don't expect much. And if I do, it's like Ring of Honor Classic presented by EW and NWA and it's like, oh man.
Yeah.
All those guys that they used to be with Ring of Honor, they're just on different promotions, but they're doing like a reunion show.
Exactly. Because I think now they're just going to be airing reruns of ROH on TV. Yep. There was something about it just, again, it also sounds like everyone in ROH is kept in the dark because let me see if I can find the quote here. Talent was told there was some type of TV show, but weren't told what that would be. So the fact that Sinclair is keeping everyone in ROH in the dark is just too many red flags that Sinclair even wants to deal with ROH anymore.
That or you're working the workers, which is never good because then you get internal, what why? They're your talent. Just tell them what's going on, sign an NDA or something, I don't know.
Too many red flags.
I don't think they have enough money. I don't think they want to put enough money behind it anymore. Sinclair is done with them. So, like you said, I think you and I are on the same page. It's done, but I think there may be a rehash of Ring of Honor, Super Card, like I said, Super Card show, but they're all from other promotions.
Yeah, exactly.
It used to be here. It's called Used to Be. But
that's so sad.
There's like a ROH somewhere in the used, they respelled used with ROH in the middle. I'll respell that in my UROHESCD. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Reused is what it's called.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if they do something, it would be talent related. If anything, Gresham would probably book the Super Card of Honor, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with Terminus.
It's just bittersweet. He's a great talent. He's one of the top guys that I really watch for now.
For sure.
Definitely him, Kyle O'Reilly. Zack Sabre Jr. I like the purist, the grappling guys that integrate grappling with wrestling and make it entertaining, and make it make sense. So I am definitely a fan of Jonathan Gresham. We'll see what happens with Ring of Honor. Will, I thank you so much for joining me. Any last thoughts of Ring of Honor? Any I don't know. What are your hopes for 2022 going forward in wrestling?
Oh wow.
Promotions and for you being a fan, because there's a lot going on.
There's so much going on.
CM Punk returning in AEW. WWE is firing everybody left and right because of the end of the quarters. And then we got ROH sewing up ship, and I don't know. Just what are your overall thoughts and hopes for 2022?
I hope that the momentum with wrestling continues to grow, and I think it will. I mean, we're starting off the 2022 with GCW at Hammerstein, um, and they sold out. And I believe they're saying it's the largest crowd for Hammerstein for a wrestling show. So I mean, kicking off the year with that, and I just in general, I feel like every month on Twitter, I see like 4 new promotions popping up, like indie promotions. So to me, that's a healthy sign. Even with we just talked about ROH, closing shop, it's not like this is going to be a death blow to wrestling. So for 2022, I hope to see that continued momentum and growth that we've been seeing on the independent circuit just continue to crescendo into just something amazing. Well, West Coast Pro is another promotion out, obviously on the West Coast, that are putting on banger shows. You got GCW. Even here in Maryland, I feel like the local promotions are booking better talent. Not to knock on the local talent, but I feel like the shows and the cards are starting to look more appealing to me, where maybe I am going to drive all the way up to Baltimore for a show. So I'm very optimistic about 2022.
Awesome. Yeah. Like you said, everything is kind of like gelling out, where it's like we're seeing where it's like, okay, if you're a wrestling fan, do you really want to see wrestling, or do you want to see this the indie stuff, which is where you get to see people hone their skills and learn, which is always fun, which is a different experience for watching wrestling for sure, which I'm so like glad that the recent exposure of wrestling and the popularity burst, the bubble within the last few years, we get more exposure to wrestling, because that used to not be a thing for a while. It was like Maryland Championship Wrestling. I've never and then hanging out with the wrestle dudes, everyone's like, oh yeah, Ring of Honor, Evolve, MCW, GCW. It's like, holy shit, there are so many promotions to watch and like people to see to come up, and and now, like you said, now they're signing top talent that need these positions, and because it'll draw in more crowds as we tend to open up. So yeah, it's a really good time to be a fan. 2022 should be a banger. Hopefully there's no variant of
knock on wood.
Where near. Yeah. So, hopefully everything goes good. Man, I really appreciate you talking to me and coming on the podcast and becoming a part of the hosting squad. You'll get a jersey or a shirt eventually. I mean, the whole thing for shirt shipping right now. It'll be on an episode because I go off on the fucking postal service.
I bet.
I go postal on postal. They resent me the shirt that I sent out. So
Jesus Christ.
for 3 months now. Yeah, mind you, I guess nobody just wants to, do their job, but whatever. Anyhow, I appreciate you joining me.
Absolutely, it was a blast.
I hope to have you back. We can chat it up, about anything wrestling again. This was really fun because you had the insight of going to see wrestling recently with ROH, and then you're like a newer fan, so it's very cool to have this perspective. I really appreciate you coming on RetroMania.
I appreciate you inviting me on.
Yes, and thank you. We'll catch up again, man.
Absolutely.